So, in this lesson, we will be working with lesson 17, and today is May 17th, 2026. And the question deals with the fact that in meditation, many times we are focused in the ajna center, sometimes we're focused in the cave or the heart of mind. What's the difference? I think that was basically it. Basically, what is the difference and why can we not just sit in the cave? Okay. There's a lot to this question, but I'm going to break it down into its easiest components. The pineal is the touchdown center of the head center. Pineal gland is the touchdown point of the head center. The pituitary is the touchdown point of the ajna center. Okay. Each one holds, there is a polarity between the two, a positive and a negative energy between the two. Okay. The pineal is positive, the pituitary is negative. They are chakra points, major chakra points. The ajna center is the 6th chakra point, whereas the head center, or the pineal, which is the touchdown for the head center, is the 7th chakra. Okay. The pituitary is dealing with recognition of patterns, insight, the shattering of illusions, and the building of, it's the unconscious recognition of patterns. Many times we're thinking that the intuition is something else, that it's not. The truth of what intuition is more so the unconscious recognition of patterns. The symbol for the pineal is the 1,000-petaled lotus. The symbol for the ajna is the 3-petaled lotus, or the three petals. It's like a circle, something like this. I don't know if you can see my artwork. You see that in there? It looks like a circle with a triangle pointing downward and 2 petals on either side. So 3 symbols going on. The East Indian word, or the Sanskrit word, for the 7th chakra is the Sahasrara chakra, S-A-H-A-S-R-A-R-A, S-A-H-A-S-R-A-R-A. Its color is, the color of the pituitary is more so indigo, is associated with that particular chakra, whereas the head center is violet. Interesting. And so what happens now? Let's talk about the other aspect. Okay. It is within the body of humanity, it is the ajna chakra that has been worked the least, okay, out of all of our chakras. As the new group of world servers, it's part of our responsibility and work is to activate that center, because it has purpose. As I've said before, it is the switchboard for all the chakras below it. Okay, and it is an observation deck. Let's call it that. Okay, it's like an observation deck. When you move out into the Ajna chakra, you can experience life in a totally different way than when you're sitting within your being, when your consciousness is sitting within your being. It's a totally different energy sitting in the Ajna center. So you are not as pulled emotionally sitting in the Ajna center. I think I've told you that before. Okay, you can actually experience what's going on and not be swayed on an emotional level or brought to tears if you don't feel like crying. Okay, if you want to maintain a certain, it's a station. It's an observation station. Okay, where you can see without the emotional attachments that usually go on and triggers that go on. It's located here. It is important for us to work both because it is a magnetic center. The connection between Ajna and pineal, and also there's a third, the Alta Major Center, which is at the back of the neck, which we really don't talk about too much. It's part of the throat center. It's behind the throat center, so to speak, or yeah. So when the three of them are activated, it creates that triangular, energetic, magnetic field of energy that radiates, literally, for seers, will actually see that kind of a halo around the head for those people who are of that level of adeptship. Okay? Okay, does that answer the question a little bit more? It's important. Why is it important to sit? Okay, sitting in the Ajna center is building the muscle, okay, of working, being able to work within the Ajna center. There are times the Ajna center is also a center where we send energy out to others, humanity, the collective, okay? So it's an observation deck, it's a command center. And because it sits almost like the polar opposite of the head center, there is a connection. One should be able to sit in the Ajna, in the head center, and while there, look out through the brow chakra out to the Ajna center, see it, and energetically, there might be a situation where you're actually sending down and out a flow of energy, or in and up a flow of energy, depending on the needs of the work that's being done. Okay? So it's purposeful. There are meditations within Master R's meditations where, yes, we do sit directly in the pineal, or the head center base. There are many meditations where that's done. But right now, I think it's important. It's important for many reasons. Number one, we're responsible for our matter. Okay? We're responsible for our matter. I've talked about that before. We're responsible for being able to work and master our matter. Okay? That's what I mean when I say responsible for our matter. We're responsible for being able to master our matter and attune it, develop it to a higher frequency than it was when we came in. And one of those, we want to make sure that that Ajna center is activated. Okay? Okay. And if you actually put your, imagine that line of light between the two, okay, yeah, kind of like a highway between the two, that's completely lit up. That's one way, and the other way is, the other aspect is that as the attunement and the sharpening of these two centers becomes stronger and stronger, it activates what's called the true third eye. Okay? And we'll be talking about the true third eye when we get to nature of the soul. What we've been taught about the third eye, there was a time in man's history when the third eye was more active than it is now. You could say right now the third eye is basically asleep in most of humanity. Okay, but when the inner training goes on through the meditation process in nature of the soul and continues, then what happens is that depending on the evolution and the vehicles, it can activate that center, and that true occult third eye is available for use. And you have to be very careful with it, because there are, as with everything, 3 levels of use. Okay, there is the aspect of love, second ray. There's also the aspect of the third ray use, and most importantly, there's the aspect of the first ray use, which can, as we know, first ray is responsible for creating life and destroying life at the same time. Okay, so you have to be, this information isn't given out readily, because it's important that it is known who is going to want to utilize it and for what purpose. Okay, so yeah. Okay, now with that, let's start the group meditation, and we will we'll start in our physical body, taking a deep breath and relaxing and releasing anything that has come before this moment. We'll take another deep breath, allowing that breath to filter into the astral body, assessing the astral body. And releasing it, seeking calmness and sereneness. As a group. And we take another deep breath into the mental body, assessing the energy of the mental body and looking out directly through the brow to the Ajna center. If it's difficult to see or feel, imagine that unicorn's horn with a big apple at the end of it, impaled on the end of that horn. And we integrate the 3 lower bodies through the breath, with the use of the breath, into the ajna center. Allowing that ajna center to magnetically pull each of the three lower bodies directly into the ajna center. And sitting now within the ajna center, receptive to divine, the overshadowing soul's impression, we look and search and connect for the energy of the soul, the group soul. And sensing that connection between the soul and the ajna center, we sound a silent Om in resonance of that connection. And move our consciousness from the ajna center along that line of light, connecting ajna to the cave, seeing the cave as a bright golden sun, surrounded by the energy of blue-white light. And we move our consciousness, simply our consciousness, into that center. Remember, this is a frequency, more so than an exact location. We identify as the conscious soul incarnate. And we identify as the group of world servers. And the group, our own group, all as one. Now, seeing that small golden sun, we shrink the sun a little bit, making it smaller in size, sitting in the cave. And as we shrink that small golden sun, we sense the frequency of the head center. Staying within the cave. And here we connect with the energy of the new thought form presentation of the wisdom. We connect with the rain cloud of knowable things for the new civilization. And we connect with the Deva of the soul and its instrument that holds the knowledge and wisdom of this thought form. And together, as we open and become receptive to this wisdom, we sound a silent Om, allowing the cave to return to its normal, a small golden sun to return to its normal size. And we gradually open our eyes. In lesson 15, I explained how the threefold personality is constructed and colored so as to attract to itself the needed experiences. In that lesson, I also drew a hypothetical parallel in order to clarify the subject. In this lesson, I shall do the same thing, but from a different perspective. We shall consider the construction of a threefold vehicle by the soul, whose projected consciousness has arrived at an awareness of purpose and is therefore consciously cooperating somewhat with the soul. Okay, that perspective, I think, is really quite, there's a lot of teaching, okay, in these lessons, in this particular lesson, that gives us an insight and perspective as to the soul taking on a vehicle, okay? We shall consider the construction of the vehicle, of the threefold vehicle by the soul, whose projected consciousness has arrived at an awareness and is therefore consciously cooperating somewhat with the soul. The consciousness in the first incarnation to be considered has entered the path as a probationer, has become aware of the soul, and has realized mental polarization. It is still engaged in the battle between the pairs of opposites. So that in itself is quite interesting, okay? Because again, it's giving us an explanation that many of us may not have taken into consideration, okay? The consciousness has arrived at an awareness of purpose, which means that it automatically has said, yes, I'm cooperating with the soul. Because it is holding that awareness of cooperating with the soul, it's a probationer, not an aspirant, a probationer. It's aware of the soul, which means it is practicing inclusive love and awareness of group, the word we as opposed to I. And yet, it's realized a mental polarization. It's no longer just on an emotional level. It's realized it's taking it up to the higher octave, moving it into the mental polarization. And yet, with all of those positives, it's still battling the pairs of opposites. Isn't that interesting? I think that's rather interesting, okay? So that tells us that the battle between the pairs of opposites go on probably through the third degree. Yeah. Or up to the third degree. And from then on, no more need to do that. Um, so, in this incarnation, its ray makeup was soul ray of love wisdom, which is a second ray, personality ray of active intelligence, which is a third ray, mental ray of concrete knowledge and science, fifth ray, astral ray of power, first ray, and the physical ray of devotion, sixth ray. Okay? For me, that helps me. I mean, I know what these things are, but to be able to see the numbers on the side also gives me a little bit of a, you know, and also going back to the to lesson 15 to look at what was going on there. So, because of its point in evolution, because of the point in evolution of the soul, the consciousness was vaguely aware of its soul purpose and the way of inclusive love. Why does it say that? Because it is a ray 2 soul, a ray of love wisdom, okay? And love wisdom is all about inclusion. Yeah. This brought conflict to bear in that its mind knew love of scientific knowledge. Its astral body knew love of power, and its physical brain recognized science as the ideal. Okay, so let's go back over that. This brought conflict to bear in that its mind, mental ray, concrete knowledge and science. Okay, so okay, let's break it down a little. So first ray, 3 of the main characteristics of the first ray. Positive characteristics are strength of will, a one-pointed focus, dynamic power, and aspects of the weaknesses of the same ray are egotism, power hungry, excessive willfulness, destructiveness, I'm going to give you a few more, and separateness or isolation. Ray 2, ray of love, wisdom. Ray 1 was the ray of power and will, and purpose, power, will, and purpose. Ray 2, love, wisdom. Characteristics, positive characteristics of love, wisdom is that, just that, loving wisdom. Extremely magnetic, receptive, impressionable, tact, and patience. The weakness, some of the weaknesses of Ray 2 are fearfulness, over-attachment, self-pity, oversensitivity and vulnerability, overabsorption in study, and tendency to an inferiority complex. Ray 3, ray of active intelligence. These people are abstract thinkers, abstract thinking, understanding relativity, facility of language, skillful communication, the power to be vocal and render thought into word. Mental fertility and creativity. Well, some of the weaknesses of Ray 3 are excessive criticism, absent-mindedness, carelessness, and inaccuracy in detail. A tendency to spread themselves too thin and get scattered. It can also be opportunistic. Ray 4, harmony through conflict. These people, which basically, by the way, Ray 4 is symbolic of humanity collectively, okay? Harmony through conflict. So there's a facility for bringing harmony out of conflict. A capacity to grow spiritually and psychologically through constant struggle and crisis. A facility for reaching at-one-ment. A love of beauty and the ability to express it. Some of the weaknesses are being embroiled in constant conflict and turmoil, within and without. Self-absorption and suffering. Lack of confidence and composure. They can be confused and combative, worry and agitative or agitation, excessive moodiness, and sometimes moral cowardice. Fifth ray, concrete science and knowledge, the one we were just talking about a little while ago. Capacity to think and act scientifically. They have a detached objectivity. Power to define. Technical expertise. Inventiveness. That's practical. And some of the weaknesses of fifth ray is excessive mentalism, over-analysis, being extremely linear, bound by the senses, rigid thought patterns, excessive doubt and skepticism, irreverence. Ray 6, devotion and abstract idealism, or devotion and abstract idealism. Okay. Positives or strengths, transcendent idealism, intense devotion, power of abstraction, self-sacrificing, one-pointedness, single-mindedness, utter loyalty and adherence, and unshakable faith, undermined optimism, or undemanded, let's put it that way, not undermined. Optimism that is going for something that doesn't really deserve it. Some of the weaknesses are rigid idealism, blind faith, unreasoning devotion and loyalty, fanaticism, militarism, selfish and jealous love, dependency, and overleaning on others. And Ray 7, last one, order and ceremonial magic, divine order and ceremonial magic, also known as the ray of accurate arrangement. And the strengths are the power to create order, the power to manifest and work on the material plane, the power to plan and organize, ritualism and ceremonialism, power as a magician, the power to work with the devas and elemental forces, and some of the weaknesses are rigid orderliness, formalism, crystallization, rigid routinization, and having a subservience to habit. Earthboundedness, intolerance of individuality, and an intolerance of anything new. Bigotry, sectarianism. So with that, you have a better kind of understanding, and I would definitely suggest that you read, as I said, Michael Robbins' Volume 1, Tapestry of the Gods. It's absolutely fascinating. You know, if you don't read it now, Don't worry about that. If you're not called to read it now, it's okay. You will be called to read it at a later. Because of its point in evolution, the consciousness was vaguely aware of its sole purpose and the way of inclusive love. This brought conflict to bear in that its mind knew love of scientific knowledge, its astral body knew love of power, and its physical brain recognized science as an ideal. God and religion were scorned, yet this person's mind could not escape the realization of a higher intelligence than that of the brain. Now, why would this person's mind scorn God and religion? Okay? There is a saying or teaching around these rays that the even rays work well together. The odd rays work well together. It creates conflict, let's put it that way. It creates conflict and a bit of disharmony when you have even and odd rays in a makeup of a soul, of an individual, and they have to work through that. Okay? It takes a little bit of a hustle and a lot of understanding. Experiences where you keep falling flat, so to speak, until you finally begin to get it. You begin to understand and sense patterns and realize, and then your energy of focus begins to harmonize with all of those different rays that are pumping at the same time, and it creates a geometry. Okay, if you're able to work harmoniously, it can create a positive geometry. So here we have soul ray, ray 2, personality. So the personality ray is the ray of the ajna center. It's the ray of the ajna center, which means what's going on there. Remember, we integrate the 3 lower bodies into that center. Okay? And when we integrate them as a unit, receptive to the overshadowing spiritual soul. Got it? Which means they're no longer just the physical, just the astral, and just the mental. They have now an understanding of their purpose to work as a integrated whole. Okay? Which was what these meditations and an awareness of disciplines necessary to begin to help the astral body and the mental body relinquish what it no longer needs, so that the 3 can come together as a unit, focused on soul, become integrated as that unit, and now that persona, that integrated personality, is now available for the soul to work with. Okay? That's what's happening. So, that's why we have the soul ray, which is constant. Then the personality ray will shift from incarnation to incarnation, but it is a unit. Not just the mental, not just the astral, not just the physical. It's the synthetic working together of the 3 that has shifted from these separate entities that were all taking the personality in many different ways. Oh, no, I want to do this. No, I want to think that. No, I want to feel that. Whatever, okay? All of that stuff that we go through in order to harness and prepare our true self to be in harmony with the soul. Okay, so that the soul and the two can work together. And then the personality can become soul infused, because now it's a ready vehicle for the soul. There's no more resistance. So, and everything is vertically focused. Okay, very important piece. So you have the soul ray, boom, personality ray of, and this is active intelligence. So the note of that integrated persona is one of the third ray, which is ray of active intelligence. The mental ray is the fifth ray, concrete knowledge and science. The astral ray is ray 1, and the physical ray of devotion. So that's why this conflict comes to bear. This brought conflict to bear in that its mind knew love of scientific knowledge and its astral body knew love of power. Scientific knowledge and power, that's the energy that's constantly questioning. It doesn't accept anything just because you say it. Okay? It wants to find out. It's the scientist. It wants to get that microscope and break everything down to its tiniest components to be able to ascertain, is this true or is this not true? And it'll take itself through the sieve, so to speak, trying to get down to the infinitesimal, so to speak, aspect of something, whereas we in the esoteric world will say, oh yeah, that's a truth, boom, got it, and then they catch up later. What's happening now, though, is science is kind of moving further ahead of the esoteric world. Okay, they're catching up to where we have been and moving forward in a new way. So it's about science and spirituality coming together and working as one. That's what the seventh ray is about. Okay. So God and religion were scorned, yet this person's mind could not escape the realization of a higher intelligence than that of the brain. It was scientific. It couldn't imagine anything higher than the brain. The concept of service, which comes from the aspect of love wisdom, okay, the aspect which is consciousness, the soul of a thing, okay, the concept of service spurred this person on in scientific investigation. So his service, he felt his service was to thrash things out scientifically, get down to the nitty-gritty, so he could say this is what the truth is, okay, and put it out there for everybody to see based on his research, consistent research. Okay, and this time the physical ray of ceremony or law and order is his physicality is a seventh ray. Okay, his astral body is a sixth ray. His mental body is a ray 1. The individual comes in this time with a background of unrealized scientific knowledge and is therefore naturally drawn to scientific education. So he comes into this life packing all that he learned from the last incarnation. Probably does not remember, of course would never remember it, right? Unless he's a phenom of some sort, you know, or a very, very high evolutionary being who remembers his past lives, hasn't forgotten, but he's packing that information, that knowledge, in his mental body from the last incarnation when it was concrete, when it was a ray 5, concrete knowledge and science. Okay, so this time the mental body is the ray of power, ray 1. We know ray 1 and ray 5 work together, right? We know that. So, and as we said, the astral ray is the sixth ray and the physical ray is the seventh. The individual comes in this time with a background of unrealized scientific knowledge and is therefore naturally drawn to education, scientific education. The first ray of power gives a clear, purposeful mind with great endurance and a recognition very early of the soul. So things are working in a balanced way. The ray of devotion gives an emotional longing for and devotion to the soul. And thus this person becomes an aspirant. So ray of devotion, whereas his physicality was that, now it's his emotional body. So ray 6, ray 1, ray 3, and then ray 2. Okay. The ray of ceremony, or law and order, gives a physical vehicle capable of organization and drive. This same ray colors the brain cells in such a way that they grasp and reflect soul purpose. Remember, ray 7 is about bringing spirit into matter. Okay? And therefore swing the personality consciousness into a greater awareness of inner reality. So, the ray of active intelligence accents form. The ray of active intelligence, where is that? That's his active intelligence, that's his ajna center. That's his ajna focus. The ray of active intelligence accents form, which provides the conflict between the pairs of opposites, soul and form, form and soul. Okay, let's go back over that a second. Ray of personality, personality ray 3. This one unconsciously begins real service in this incarnation, that of bringing abstraction into concrete form. This person adjusts much karma and so suffers. But realization of purpose, steadily integrating consciousness and aspiration, are preparing this individual for discipleship. Facility for handling money. That's another one of the positive aspects of ray 3. Facility for handling money. So when we go into the aspect of the abstract mind, which we do at the end of a meditation, what we're actually doing is feeling into that higher mind, the abstract mind, and putting words around whatever that impression is. It doesn't come with words necessarily. Sometimes it does. If we can actually tune into it, we can actually see and hear what the new phraseology that's coming through is. Okay? And we try to take the frequency of the meditation and form words around it, make a sentence out of it. Okay? So that is an aspect of the ray of active intelligence accents form. Okay? It's a way of creating form where form otherwise would not be. And many times what we're putting words around or putting into form is something that many times, depending on our level of or ability to meditate, has never actually been anchored before. It's coming through you. It's between you and your soul. Okay? So it's something it can be an aspect of something absolutely brand new that's never been even heard on this plane before. Okay? So soul and form, form and soul. This is what the pair of opposites is really all about, guys. The pair of opposites is the conflict between soul and form. Okay? Matter and spirit. That's what the pairs of opposites are. It's a solar plexus position. It's where the tug of war goes on between my way, no, your way. I had it first, no, you had it, so whatever. Between right and wrong, good and bad, evil and good, up and down, you name it. It's that. It's the pair. That's the pairs of opposites. And we are responsible when we experience the pairs of opposites, whether outside of us in our arena, collectively, individually, we are responsible for learning how to balance those pairs of opposites. Go to that neutral point. It is said, that neutral point that exists in a higher realm than the two opposites. Okay? Yeah. This one unconsciously begins real service in this incarnation, that of bringing abstraction into concrete form. This person adjusts much karma and so suffers. But realization of purpose, steadily integrating consciousness, and aspiration are preparing this individual for discipleship. What does all that mean? The aspect of balancing pairs of opposites collectively, individually, within a group, within a neighborhood, whatever, okay, political stage. When we look out and we see the pairs of opposites happening, we, the new group of world servers, are known as agents of transmutation. I've talked about this before. We're known as agents of transmutation. And the work is being able to stand at that point of neutrality and energetically, again, use of the Ajna Center, okay, and we were talking about that earlier, energetically finding that point within in your meditation that is that neutral space between the pairs of opposites. And once you find it, beaming that out to humanity, which changes the complexity, the geometry, but has the ability to drop a seed into the confusion and change the energy altogether. And as if you have a group of world servers all over the world seeing and doing this work as agents of transmutation, imagine seeding the planet with these golden particles of light to help transmute the conflict that is ongoing within humanity among many who don't know what the stance of the pairs of opposites are, how to heal them, how to work with them. I just wrote a paper on the pairs of opposites. I'll send it to you. In the next incarnation, the same soul will utilize the following equipment: second ray soul, personality ray, ray of devotion, 6, mental ray of power, 1, astral ray of harmony, 4, physical ray of ceremony, law and order, 7. Okay? Slowly the soul is preparing the projected consciousness for a second ray personality and service on the teaching ray. Okay? So you have the second ray, personality ray of devotion, 6. Those two are going to work very well together. Then you have the mental ray of power, the astral ray of harmony, so the emotional body and the ray of personality and the ray of the soul are all going to be thinking the same line. Okay? And ray of mental power, with all of that power around it, is going to be able to direct its mind powerfully to serve the soul. Okay? And then the physical ray of ceremony and law and order, 7. This is pure harmony. This makeup here is pure harmony. This is somebody who can get things done in an orderly fashion. This is somebody who, yes, will go through, struggle with conflict and crises, and will work at it, okay, like a dog with a bone. They will be totally invested in clearing the energies in a way. It knows what it's doing. It's working through in a conscious way. Mental ray of power, okay, this is the energy of divine will, power, and purpose. The energy of Shambhala, which we'll talk about later. The divine plan comes from Shambhala. So this is all in order. This particular organization is in order. Slowly the soul is preparing the projected consciousness for a second ray personality in service on the teaching ray. Devotion to an ideal has become the integrating ray of the threefold personality, and the ideal is already well established as the soul or higher self and the way of inclusive love. The astral body has swung on to the fourth ray of harmony through conflict, and the real battle between soul and personality now begins. The renunciation makes itself known to the consciousness as the necessary discipline, and the question of motive enters awareness. The astral nature puts up a last-ditch fight to regain its supremacy in the life and affairs. That's what I'm talking about. It struggles. It's like I don't know. I was gonna say two major fighters in the ring. Okay, it's like two major fighters in the ring. You know, this astral nature being ray of harmony, fourth ray. You know, fourth ray gets down in the mud. It doesn't have a problem getting down in the mud and in order to arrive at a new place. Okay. So because of its great strength and gained earlier on the first ray of power, the battle is severe. The mental polarization with its first ray power is the stronger, however, and will establish once and for all its control over the emotions. Going back again to look at the rentable. So ray 1 will take over this stress of astral ray of harmony. The battle between soul and personality will then shift its focus to the mental plane. The aspirant will need to be aware of a mental tendency to superiority, pride, and a drive for power. Herein lies danger and choice. The seventh ray will give this individual, in this incarnation, much physical magnetism, an intuitive understanding of law, and an ability to work with form to advantage. This incarnation offers great opportunity for progress. Its finish will see the incarnating entity well established on either the right or the left-hand path, depending upon his choice. That's right, we're all at choice at the third degree. Okay? That's when the choice is made. So he even gets to that level of making a choice. The same equipment, if utilized by a soul whose projected consciousness had realized discipleship, would be handled somewhat differently. The soul ray of love wisdom would indicate teaching as the field of service, and the disciple would establish as a teacher of the ancient wisdom. That's the way I thought it was going to go. The personality ray of devotion would indicate some crystallization in regard to truth, usually gained during some former incarnation of devotion to a sense but unrealized and therefore distorted ideal. a karmic tie and therefore obligation to the Master Jesus and Christianity and the Church, usually Catholic, as at least one area of service karma. In other words, while this one would be a teacher of ancient wisdom, service karma would bring this one into the area of the church. Yeah, since the integrated persona is striking a note of the sixth ray, which we know is one-pointed, sometimes fanatical, transcendent idealism, okay? Intense devotion, self-sacrificial or ardor or energy, unshakable faith. Yeah. Devotion to an ideal has become the integrating ray of the three-pole personality, and the ideal is already well established as the soul or higher self and the way of inclusive love. The astral body has swung on to the fourth ray of harmony through conflict, and the real battle between soul and personality begins. The seventh ray will give this individual in this incarnation much physical magnetism, right? This incarnation offers great opportunity for progress. Its finish will see the incarnating entity well established on either the right, left hand, right. The same equipment, if utilized by a soul whose projected consciousness had realized discipleship, would have done something different. This would be the teacher. But this is the one that's really attached for some reason, because of that ray of devotion, to a Christian leaning. It says, in other words, while this one would be a teacher of ancient wisdom, service karma would bring this one into the area of the church. I have a friend who's like this. She's really been taught everything about the ancient wisdom, and she's serving. Her service is in church. A Baptist church at that. And she knows what she's doing. This one's service then would be to concentrate upon the uniting or synthesizing of the Eastern and Western philosophies. So she's slowly bringing that information into the church consciousness for the other aspect of karma. Okay, let me read that again. For the other aspect of karma, that of the second ray soul, would obligate this one to East and therefore the Buddha. This individual's greater service then would be the bringing of peace to the disciples of both Buddha and the Christ, also known as Buddha Maitreya. Okay, both names are hyphenated, Buddha Maitreya. The mental ray of power, 3, mental ray of power, would give this individual a good control of the 2 lower vehicles, but provide this individual with conflict. The first ray tends to isolate, and when predominant in the mental body, is often separative. The disciple would necessarily have to detach from the personality and will to love. Yes. First ray energy has to will to love. It's the only way they get it, because they have a tendency to want to be solitaires. And number 4, the fourth ray of harmony through conflict would provide the soul with an astral vehicle capable of transmutation, and conflict would be transmuted into harmony. We were talking about that earlier. This would give this one the intuitive understanding necessary to work with Eastern and Western doctrines. And 5, the 7th ray of ceremony would indicate again a karmic obligation to either the Catholic Church or the Masonic movement, and would allow the disciple to work successfully with ritual and mantric form. Why have I gone into such detail in lesson 15 and in this lesson when you apparently have such little background for understanding, which is why I gave you the list of each one of these rays, their positives and their weaknesses and strengths. The question has 2 answers, which I should explain as follows. With the incoming in the seventh ray of law and order at this time, much knowledge anent the rays is overshadowing humanity. It is possible for groups of dedicated disciples to be impressed by this knowledge that's overshadowing humanity. Remember I said in the meditation, okay? The new rain cloud of noble things that is overshadowing humanity with the information, streams of information for the new civilization. And hence to aid their own growth by an intelligent understanding of their own ray and makeup. All individuals have their own peculiar problems arising out of their peculiar ray makeup and their past experiences. An understanding of their problems will render them more capable of fitting themselves for service, as well as providing them with the light to shine upon the path for their brothers. So, what Master R is going to be recommending in this particular, he's getting ready to recommend, is that we as a group, or you really as a group, work together and determine the ray makeup of each one of you, okay, as a study, as an experiment over the, say, the next maybe month or so. Explains it. When I tell you that it is possible for groups of dedicated disciples to be impressed by the knowledge of the rays, I do not mean that they will receive communication from an entity or groups of entities. That's not what he's saying. The knowledge overshadows humanity as a whole and can be intuited by those who can tune in on the right mental frequency, right motive. A sincere level of humanity and meditation makes this possible. I am presenting you with an assignment that will, if accepted, take as many weeks as there are members of your group and possibly more. The assignment is optional and is to be voted upon. Its acceptance must be unanimous, if at all. And for that reason, I shall ask you to consider it very carefully before a vote is taken. The assignment is as follows. One member of the group will volunteer each week as a subject of study by the other members of the group. They will study the person in the following manner. 1, attempt to arrive at the individual's ray makeup. Those major rays that we just saw, the soul ray, the personality ray, the mental, the astral, the physical. Okay. Discover whether or not it is directed according to its divine intention. The ray makeup is directed according to its divine intention. Discover the individual's particular problem, might be weakness, and what body it's focused, and discover how best the problem can be solved. They will work as a group, not as individuals, and together we'll write up a case. I love you laughing at this, Jane.
Yeah.
and together we'll write up a case record of the person under observation, which is to be given to their teacher at the end of each study. Now, we have not turned in one thing yet. So, I leave this up to you guys. It's something that you guys can create. I don't think it's necessarily you have to turn into me at all, since we've never done that. The member under observation will not take part in the group activity, except as an object of study. So it's possible that maybe, you work with one particular person for a period of time, and then once you've come up with your diagnosis, so to speak, then you move on to another person. They write something up, okay, and then write the next person, observe, ask whatever questions you feel that are really pertinent, or listen to them speak about things and kind of begin to sense or intuit where maybe the ray thing is. And again, let's finish this thing up. If this assignment is carried out, it will be absolutely necessary for each member of the group to detach from the personality and personalities. There will be no further lessons until the assignment is either rejected immediately or carried out to its completion. I realize that this is a difficult assignment and a test of the group. Therefore, I leave you free to make your own choice. Peace be unto. From what I'm understanding, this is a rather advanced lesson. Okay, I mean this task is a rather advanced task. Okay, this experiment, this homework, and I think it's an aspect of homework that is better within some of the more advanced aspects of the teaching, whether that would be nature of the soul or teacher training. Usually comes after nature of the soul, teacher training 1 and 2. So it's not something that and yet at the same time, I'm going to tell you, it's an excellent exercise. Okay? I mean, if you really want to kind of get deep into the weeds, so to speak, of the rays and begin to put it to work, which will help you begin to embody and understand the rays in another way, this is a perfect vehicle for doing it. Okay? So I would ask, first of all, how many of you think that this is something you guys have to work out yourself. I really don't have any need to get involved, okay? You guys can share your email addresses. You guys can, I've been working with the rays now for, wow, a number of years. And I'm just getting to the point of beginning to understand what my rays are. Okay, I know I was a second ray soul. That was automatic. But the personality focus, or the integrated personality focus, I wasn't aware of. My astral body, I kept waffling around between one ray or another ray, or, you know, I thought maybe I was getting that confused. And I just recently realized what that is. Mental body, mental body, sitting down with Michael Robbins' book, this book that I'm telling you guys to sit down with, because he not only gives these assessments of what each ray is, its positives, its strength and its weaknesses rather, but he also goes into an explanation in that book, at volume 1, of what each one of those characteristics mean. And it's a wealth of information. This guy was really, he was connected to DK, and he was an astrologer, a fantastic astrologer, Michael Robbins, and he just passed away last year. And he ran the Moria Federation with his wife Tuya. And they do good work. Very, you know, they have a strong 6th ray energy. Work with a lot of angelic goddesses, so forth and so on. Music, they bring spirit into matter. And it's a strong group, very strong group. I like them a lot. I've been involved in a lot of their work, and yeah, they do good work. So Moria, M-O-R-Y-A, the Moria. So there is a meditation which we can do as we begin to approach the work down the pike, I think after Paths of Initiation, that we'll do with Nature of the Soul, if the group is interested. And then we have to find out if the group is interested in that. So this meditation is called Aligning with the Wisdom Overshadowing the Nature of the Day. Prepare for meditation. Sit up straight, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and as you release it, move your awareness into the ajna center. There, integrate the threefold persona, the body, emotions, and mind, into a single unit in aspiration to the overshadowing spiritual soul. Slowly move back into the cave along that line of light that connects the ajna to the cave or the heart of mind, seeing that bright golden sun in the center of a field of blue-white light. Integrate the threefold aspect of the soul, that part of your soul that is instinctive, the animal soul, that part of your soul that is the human soul, and that part of the soul that is the spiritual soul. Integrate this threefold soul into a single unit, an aspiration to the energy of the Christos, or the Christ energy. Pure love, inclusiveness, pure consciousness, group focused. As the soul in the cave, align upward with all that wisdom which overshadows the soul and its instrument, the deva of this wisdom. And via that wisdom, align with and become ready to receive all that wisdom which overshadows the nature of the soul. Recognizing that that wisdom is activated only as you perform it and embody it daily in your life and affairs. Audibly sound the Om, and as you sound the Om, experience the energy of this meditation moving from the cave along that line of light to the Ajna center, and from the Ajna center out to the new group of world servers and humanity as you sound the Om. Experience it as a beam of light radiating outward, touching your peers, the new group of world servers who are ahead of you, those aspirants coming behind you, and then all of humanity who is in some form or fashion seeking greater wisdom. And once you have sent that energy outward to humanity and the new group of world servers, bring the light of that directed energy up to triangularly, diagonally connect with your head center, 3 to 6 inches above your head. And allow the energies to pour through back down into the center of the head, and from the cave back out to the Ajna center. It circulates like that. We direct the energy back up diagonally to reconnect it with the energies of the Christ, the planetary logos, our higher forces, from whence it came, and then back down and back out again. Triangularly moves in that direction at all times, whether we're aware of it or not. And now that we are aware of it, you can actually allow that at the end of your meditations to circulate in that direction, creating that triangular movement. Out, above, and back down into the cave. So, what's the consensus of the group? Even though we don't have Hannah, which is not good, which Hannah should be here too. But you feel it's something you want to wait to do? Is that the general consensus, or is anyone interested in
I think I think I need to get that Robbins book.
Me too. Me
Yes,
too.
The feeling is I need
Mhm.
to understand more the
yes,
positive, the negative attributes before I
yes.
can even look at myself,
It's
you
the
know.
truth. It's the truth. And not only that, but we have not even begun to embody each of these rays yet. Okay? And that's what nature of the soul does. You
Good
embody it,
call.
you know? You embody it, and when you embody it, it begins to mean more to you. And we spend 2 weeks on each of the rays. Okay,
Okay.
Yeah.
as we go through it. So I agree with you. I agree with you. But
Me
it's
too.
good to know that this is
Me too.
here. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. There's no have tos in this, okay? But it's an interesting, it's been a delight as always to be with you
Thank you
guys.
so
You
much,
too
Okay.
everybody.
Thank
so
you.
Thank
much.
you.
Any questions before I finish?
No, I
No?
just love this group and class.
I have a question. I have a question.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know, following my own life, it seems like that there's so much change. It's almost like in the beginning, you're catching up with the old lives or something like that, and then you go on. Is it possible that recapitulation, is it possible that when you go through a period of recapitulation, maybe you touch bases with all those other rays until you finally settle on what you are in this life?
That's a good question.
Okay. Um, the first thing I feel to say is remember, the soul is made up of all the rays. Remember that, okay? The
Yeah.
soul is made up of, your soul is made up of all the rays. But there are five that come forth and are prominent, okay? Or five levels. Not to say that you could have a second ray soul and a second ray persona, okay? You could have a second ray soul and or fourth ray whatever, maybe a fourth ray mental body, and maybe a fourth ray astral body. Okay? You never know. The fluctuations are just multiple. I mean, the many different things that you can have are multiple. So now, your question was, again, state it for me.
It seems like in the early part of life, there's like almost like a recapitulation that goes on.
Yes, yes.
Is that true?
Yes, it is. It is. Yes, it
Okay.
is. Absolutely. Oh my God, you hit it dead on. Absolutely. Especially when the years between toddler to 7 years old. This is the nature of the soul. Between toddler and 7 years old is an astral recapitulation. Is that right? I have it in my book. From 7 to 14, again, 7 years, that's the astral. The 7 to 14 is the astral, okay?
That make more sense.
14 to, what was that, 21? Yeah, 14 to 21 is more of a mental recapitulation. Then 7 or 21 to 28, major period of time. Major period of time. Okay, so each one has a particular level, and we're recapitulating things, which is why I said you have a situation where, a Mozart comes into a lifetime, that particular lifetime, and he is a phenom on the piano. Okay, music theory, has the whole thing down from a past lifetime. Okay, and probably from several past lifetimes to get him to that level of expertise. So, yes, we recapitulate between the years of birth, between birth and 28 to 32. We are in recapitulation, okay, period of time. And that's when you'll see kids all of a sudden, you're like wondering, where did that come from? or why, and it's really, it requires a lot from spiritual parents to be able to know this, to aid the soul. If every parent knew this in advance, okay, then they would be able to not only know themselves better, but be able to be there for their child as they go through these different phases, and not think that the child is curious or evil incarnate because they might be bringing something from a past lifetime that may not fit socially into the spectrum of life that we're living right now, okay? But it's to understand it and realize, I need to, what it is they need to impart to that child so that that child can make wise decisions going forward. It's not about right, wrong, it's not about all of that. It's something else that needs to be imparted so that the child learns how to think. It's not about just good or bad, right or wrong. It's none of that whatsoever. So, but it requires parents to be trained in that way, and we have now a group of spiritual forerunners, this new group of world servers who have been on the path now for a long period of time and can assist humanity in new ways. That's why you have things like a lot of different things. They're working in the fields of psychology. They're working in the fields of doulas for death and for birth. They're working in all kinds of fields, and putting themselves in these positions to be able to assist. Even now, there's something I just realized and sent it out to people, but I missed getting the proper link, so I can't even share it with you. I'm still looking for it. Where now AI has been trained to understand the gifts of children, understand the purpose and the viewpoint, the mission of a child, which is what Education in the New Age, one of A.B.'s books, is really about, where meditation will be taught in school, where kids will be directed according to their talents and gifts, okay? And it's not about leaving anybody out of anything, as long as the right people can control the work, okay? It's the minute something else comes out, it's interesting how the word control, who's going to control it, becomes which is still the patriarchal society. It's not the energy of the divine feminine. The divine feminine is here to make sure it's available to everybody, and everybody benefits from it, so that children are not in something that they're not really interested in and won't benefit from in the long run. How much information have we been given in early schooling that we did not need at all, right?
Yeah.
So and it'll be less of those situations where kids say, I'm leaving school because it's boring, because they'll be directed to what they're really here for, what their purpose is, and they're understanding that. That's the education for the New Age, okay? Yes, so we do recapitulate. Sorry, I went around Robin Hood's barn there. We do recapitulate, and that's a necessary thing. It's part of life, and it's through an understanding of these books, Soul and Its Instrument, Nature of the Soul, and A.B.'s books, that we begin to understand what each of the rays are and what they actually mean and how they apply. I just realized I have a fourth ray astral body. I work through stuff, okay? I feel the conflict deeply in my being, okay? I'm very musical. keenly aware of rhythm and timing. That might also be something else. I can't remember what that one was. But there's something between either fourth ray or sixth ray in the emotional body. I don't feel myself to be fanatical. I don't feel myself to be orthodox in any way. So I kind of rule out that sixth ray aspect, and it feels more like a fourth ray of really feeling in a deep way whatever it is I'm going through. I didn't realize that before. I would never have said I had a fourth ray anything. Okay, and I think I might have a third ray mental body. That surprised me too, because I thought, no, I have no third ray. I have no fourth ray. I think I have both. So usually what it is we think we are not, you might be. It might actually be what you have. So, we have a tendency to turn our back on what it is we really don't want to see, you know?
Yeah.
So, I hope that answers the question. Did it in any way, Sia?
So during that recapitulation time, would there be other rays involved? I mean, than
Ah,
the one you end up being or showing. I mean, in that recapitulation, wouldn't you be bringing in the memory or the
yeah. The way of least resistance of the past.
uh-huh.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. The habits of the past. Yes. Okay.
So it wouldn't be until you've matured that you would be able to actually tell what ray you were. That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
That's why none of this is. Yeah. I hear what you're saying. It's very very true. You wouldn't be, but I have a feeling. I have a feeling that there are going if there can be a positive aspect to these things that I have a tendency to detest, like AI, it would be that the ability to quickly assess
Okay.
character, in a way that's thorough, not eclipsing anything, okay, in a way that's thorough, and practical and fully aware of the creative arena and the way the mind thinks and ways that it can go, that it can actually thoroughly just assess, you know, this particular person might be, not to say that it's always going to be right, you know, usually the one thing that is constant is the soul. And as you'll learn in Nature of the Soul, one can have, as we start to walk the path, there are situations where it would appear a friend would think that a person has changed. They're no longer being the way they used to be. And that's because they're maturing and developing spiritually, and their frequency changes, okay? And one would think that the ray changes, but no, it's not the ray. It's the higher frequency of what has been going on. That's of the higher frequency of that ray. So you see,
Yeah.
so a
That
person, and
answers
what
my
will
question.
happen is as that training and discipline and all of that happens spiritually, communication between some people is no longer there, because you're no longer who you were, okay? And that happens, and you have to really understand that people have to understand it. And you lose friends, okay? You change friends, okay? Because it's just the nature of the beast. As your frequency shifts, attraction by some people wanes and attraction to other people comes. You know, you magnetically attract other people, other situation, other opportunities. And it's because your frequency is shifting, not necessarily the ray. Okay? Okay.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Always,
Yeah.
always wonderful.
Wow.